Welcome back for another episode of Husky Careers Unleashed. We've got another member of our Michigan Tech family joining us today. And to kick off the episode, I'm going to turn it over to Casey to let him introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Casey Nelson, and I am the manager of study away and study abroad experiences here at Michigan Tech. Prior to that, I was a study abroad advisor at the University of Mississippi for about 3 years, starting in 2019, and then the University of Georgia for a couple more. So in May of 2023, that's when I moved back up here. I was an undergraduate here. I graduated in 2018 at Michigan Tech with a degree in communication, culture, and media.
So, did you ever imagine when you got that degree that you would find yourself back at Michigan Tech during your professional journey?
I don't think I would have imagined it. Being a student from the UP and then going to Michigan Tech, I kind of always had the dream of getting out. And then when it did happen, you kind of just realize, oh, I really actually missed that. And yeah, and being closer to family and stuff too. So yeah, it was always a goal of mine to like kind of like get out, but not looking at like a major city or anything, but I was really excited to kind of see the like kind of like SEC campus lifestyle of like
Mhm.
larger campuses. So that's kind of why I ended up in Mississippi, the university there. But really, when I graduated, I was applying all over the country for study abroad type roles at various universities. And like I said, the opportunity to kind of like see that different sort of culture, that
Mhm.
environment, a larger university and like a large just where campus and like kind of revolves around the sports that you see on TV growing up was exciting. But yeah, really excited that I'm back.
Well, and as an alum myself, I'm also kind of in that same boat. I didn't imagine that I would be back working for tech after graduating, but so thankful for these opportunities that we've had. So today our conversation is going to be kind of revolving around campus and community involvement and how that can help kind of shape and determine your ideal field. And college really is a perfect environment to test out all of these different opportunities before really settling in on one of them, and kind of figuring out what your career journey looks like. So let's kind of dive into your background as a student who graduated from Michigan Tech. What was one of the first clubs or organizations that you started trying out while you were a student?
So it actually was very late for me before I actually started getting involved on campus and within the community. I actually started at Michigan Tech in the fall of 2012 as a chemical engineering student. And my first 3 years, first 2 years, I wasn't really involved at all. I'm a first generation college student. Coming to Michigan Tech was only the second time in my life I ever went to a new school. I went to a new school in kindergarten. K through 12 is all one building in Norway, Michigan. So it really was like an adjustment process. And I really was treating college a lot like high school when I first started. Just, going to class, doing my homework, wasn't really involved. I wasn't even sure what chemical engineers did when I started in it. I just knew I liked chemistry in high school, and all the teachers told you, like, oh, go do engineering. I didn't visit any other schools. I just knew that I lived close to Michigan Tech. I didn't know as a kid if my family or I was able to afford college. My parents mentioned Michigan Tech one day. So I was just like, yeah, I would like that. I would like to go to college. And so it wasn't until my third year, the first semester of my third year, I actually studied for a semester in the Dominican Republic. I was minoring in Spanish as well. So I finished my minor through doing that and then came back and completed my third year as a chemical engineering student. So I want to say it was during that semester where I applied for this kind of global ambassador position through the organization that I studied with. That, and the sole purpose was kind of like promote study abroad across campus, work with the International Programs and Services Office here, and kind of do peer involvement and stuff like that. And that led to getting involved with International Club, which was a student organization here at the time. That's mission was kind of bridge the gap between domestic and international students here at Michigan Tech. Um, so that's when I first initially started getting involved. Um, I always say that it's kind of like funny. It like took being the country for 4 months and then coming back before I was actually interested in kind of getting involved, not just on campus, but within the community as well.
So was that study abroad experience kind of what was part of the factor in deciding to not do the chemical engineering route and kind of explore other avenues?
I would say it's what sparked it at that point. Like when I came back, I was still wasn't sure what I would want to do. I considered transferring to other schools. I'm like, maybe I'll major in Spanish at another university in Michigan. Kind of the whole, it did kind of lead me toward focusing on more like international sort of like career paths, even though I didn't know what exactly I would do or could do. I didn't find out about communication, culture, and media, the major, until I talked to, I was a student worker in the campus library. And I was telling my supervisor that I was considering transferring in that summer between my third and fourth year. And they're just like, no, I'm going to find something. And they're like, tell me what you're interested in. She's just like, what about this? Communication, culture, and media. And yeah, it was much more up my alley. I didn't know that major existed at Michigan Tech when I made that transition. But I also added a minor in teaching English to speakers of other languages at the time when I made that switch. And yeah, that's really when I kind of like started getting involved, not just in international things on campus too, but I started like involving more time with my personal interests. So I was a member of WIM2, the head of marketing, and kind of really kind of my role was more with events and booking bands and kind of like planning shows. So I did that for WIM2, but also just personally as well throughout the community, having connections with different bands and artists. And that, I don't know, it's hard to kind of relate the two, but I think through that, through WIM2 and kind of like the more music side, that's when I don't know, it helped me become more outgoing and
Mhm.
easier to have like other conversations and stuff like that.
So while you were a student kind of figuring out the path, was there any time during that you kind of felt uncertain and you had put in kind of the 3 years towards a degree? Now you've discovered something new. What was kind of that process like for you, with kind of switching complete directions?
The biggest concern was more just, the money and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, do I have enough scholarships to be able to do 3 more years of undergrad, even though I've done three already? So I had a lot of conversations with the financial aid office, and they were able to help me with that and kind of give me a breakdown of like, oh, what scholarships do you receive? How many semesters are they good for? Yeah, it was really difficult, especially like not knowing what my career was. So I think the communication culture and media major was perfect for me because it really does kind of, you can kind of like choose your path, whether it is the more media side or kind of the cultural theory side. Um, and yeah, I was kind of just like going along with it. And eventually I started really kind of like getting interested in the field of international education. There was one summer where I attended, I said when I got back from study abroad, I applied for like this global ambassadorship.
Mhm.
And they have a workshop every summer that their global ambassadors can apply to, and they choose 10 every year to visit the company headquarters in Austin, Texas. So that was my first experience, kind of like intro to the professional side of study abroad and what that looks like. And I really, really enjoyed it. In fact, I remember I was still enrolled as a chemical engineering student when I attended that conference, and they had me do a mock interview while I was there as part of like the professional development part of it.
Mhm.
So I just printed off, I know, just some random like internship job description for, I don't remember what company, it might have been like Kohler, Kimberly Clark or
Mhm.
something. The one that was just like, oh yeah, this is just a general like entry level chemical engineering internship
Mhm.
position. And I like gave them that, and they did he started the mock interview, and it was just like, so why are you interested in internship with? And he said the company name. And I'm just like, can I stop this? I don't, I'm not interested in this actually. And he was just like, yeah, that's fine. So like, what do you like? And I'm like, well, I mean, it's like I've been at this like conference for a couple days now, and I kind of like this environment of like the professional side of study abroad. He's just like, oh, well, I'll just interview you as if you're like interviewing for a job at this company then. And then I talked to another, there was also a resume workshop at this conference. And I talked to another person who at the organization, International Studies Abroad, who was looking at my resume. And I kind of told him about that mock interview thing earlier. And he was talking about other things that I might be interested in. And I was talking about like my involvement in kind of like music and putting shows together. And
Mhm,
that's how that might be something that I might be interested in pursuing. So he was giving me tips on that. So I think it was after that conference when I got back to Houghton. This was in the summer between my third and fourth year,
mhm.
where I was considering changing my major and then ultimately landed on communication, culture, and media here at Michigan Tech.
Very nice. So, reflecting back, you had mentioned that you weren't as involved on campus early on. So, if you had a piece of advice for incoming students to kind of push them outside of their comfort zone and really kind of start getting more involved on campus, what would that advice be?
I would say dip your toes into as much as possible. Like if you go to a meeting for a student organization, just attending that meeting isn't like a full commitment. If you go to K Day, sign up for all these different student
Mhm,
orgs and figure out what you like and what your interests are. And you can kind of go with the flow from there. But yeah, when I look back, like my biggest struggle with kind of figuring out what I wanted to do is that I just had no preparation for what college life looked like whatsoever.
mhm,
As a first gen student who just K through 12 all through one building. Um, yeah, so it just took a lot of time of understanding what I wanted. And for students who maybe kind of disillusioned with Michigan Tech in the process, for students that are on campus and they're struggling to get involved. I really do. I will plug study abroad for these students. It's an amazing opportunity. Sometimes at Michigan Tech, I felt this as a student. It was big in a way, but also like it is a positive, but also, I don't know, in my specific situation, kind of like going through the routine and seeing the same
mhm.
people every day, but just also not being involved on campus, just kind of being a almost an NPC around around campus. Um, going abroad, I when I went to the semester in Dominican Republic, it was also my first time outside of spending more than a weekend in a town of more than 10,000 people. So having that experience and just kind of doing that on my own and kind of making my own go of it and making friends from other countries and
Mhm,
from all around the US who are also on that program, it really did help me kind of have that confidence to yeah, get my foot in the door in more student organizations and just stopping into places and saying hi and talking to people and learning about what different organizations do. I guess going back to the original question, my advice for students, you don't need to commit to join every single student organization at first, but attend things.
mhm.
And throughout that process, talk to people, and eventually you will find your place, you will find your role. But for me, that took ditching the country for a whole semester, coming back, and that's when I kind of really started to figure out my place here at Michigan Tech.
When you were exploring different opportunities and involvement, was there anything that surprised you or didn't turn out kind of the way you expected getting involved with an organization?
I guess you assume that like the path to like organize like student org leadership is a much more taxing process than it is be like really it's just a matter of kind of like showing up, having a genuine interest And if you're attending enough meetings and you're active and you're interested in what you're talking to, like the student orgs that I was a part of, International Club, I had a leadership position in that after just attending meetings for half a semester. The next semester, I was in a leadership position. I was on the e board with WIM2 as in the marketing events
Mhm.
sort of department there. And really, yeah, it really was just showing up, having a genuine interest. But I guess, yeah, as a first year student, I don't know, upperclassmen were intimidating to
Mhm.
me.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess I would always question, like, oh, if I walk in there and nobody knows me, like, I don't know. It was difficult for me to kind of overcome that sort of initial just transition
Mhm.
and social awkwardness.
And I think a lot of our students can relate to that. I mean, it's a big step going from kind of that high school environment into a collegiate environment, whether it's the academics behind it or the social side of it, or just being away from home for potentially the first time for an extended period of time. There's a lot of shifts in kind of the lifestyle when you go into college. And so, kind of finding your community, reaching out to these orgs, even though it might be scary in the beginning, could lead you to some great opportunities throughout your time at an institution. You mentioned that you had a variety of leadership roles in some different orgs. How do you think those leadership positions helped kind of shape your future path that ultimately became your career?
Yeah, if I didn't have the leadership roles with student orgs to fall back on, I look at my time in my college, of my like time in college. All I would have had to talk about in interviews is just my classes, I guess, and that's not. I've never had an interview. I mean, it might vary depending on the field you're in
Mhm.
and the type of interview you're having, whether it's for an internship. But post graduating college and kind of like going into the professional career, I've never been in an interview and somebody asked me about what was my favorite class or how did you do in like classes. It's really how do you handle these situations or how event planning or conflicts. So I mean, I guess I could have like fell back on like projects if I had to like think
Mhm.
really hard, but it's really the most memorable experiences are like moving forward with projects through the student organizations that I was a part of, whether with International Club, where we kind of started an exchange student buddy program, or we started this program for language lessons for Korean, Japanese, and Chinese for students, because those aren't classes that you can take here at Michigan Tech. And then through my minor, teaching English to speakers of other languages. I think in interviews, I don't think I ever referenced specific things that ever came up in those classes, but I did
Mhm.
talk about my time volunteering at the Canterbury House. For students that don't know, you can sign up to volunteer and be an English tutor at the Canterbury House. So I did that as part of my practicum in those courses. Yeah, I think it just gives you content to fall back on, I guess, in interviews when you're being asked about, oh, tell us about a time you had conflicts. A, how did you go about resolving it? Or can you tell us an organization, like an event that you planned? And yeah, being able to talk about International Night, which is an annual sort of a festival celebration that our organization would throw on an annual basis, and being able to talk about the trials and tribulations and kind of how you adapted to overcome those struggles. Yeah, it was really those experiences that I've always referenced when I was in my early days of applying for my first job after graduating.
Well, and I think that's a great kind of point to make is a lot of times in interviews, those recruiters or hiring managers don't really care about your coursework. It's more about your practical experience, how that can relate to the industry, and those transferable skills, like we've talked about in some of the other episodes with other guests. So I think it's a great way to get kind of that hands on experience, and the types of things that you'll learn in those leadership roles with student orgs. You really can't learn that in the classroom. So it's valuable experiences to kind of help shape your skill set as you're going out and kind of defining your ideal path and your ideal career. Now, during your time as a student, was there anybody who was kind of like a mentor for you that helped you kind of navigate the environment of changing majors and ultimately making the decision that has led you down this current career path?
Yeah, absolutely. When I changed to communication culture and media, I don't think I had conversation with either department before I kind of like did it and went with the registrar, and they're like, "Oh, well, you have to meet with the advisor of CCM first." And Maria Bergstrom was very essential for me to kind of like navigate that transition and talk about what my actual interests were and talking about how I could go about that major in a way where I could get the most out of it to suit like what my goals were post graduation. Because, like I said, communication, culture, media, you can kind of take different paths within that major. So she was definitely a big part of not just like me joining that major, but also kind of figuring out what courses to take to get the most out of it. Um, and then Vienna Lenarducci, she was the study abroad manager at the time when I was a student. So um, I did the global ambassadorship for 3 years. So she was very instrumental for me for kind of just an introduction to the field. And she gave me so many opportunities to do peer mentoring with students. She would give me the lead on classroom presentations. She would just be like, "Oh, I can't make this. Can you go give a presentation on study abroad overall to this class?" Or navigating campus and kind of like recruitment, um, like kind of giving me the reins to figure out the best ways to promote study abroad across campus. So I really did gain a lot of leadership skills from her and kind of her like management style and how she handled like the students and kind of like giving us the great the best balance between like guidance and kind of independence through that. Um, I do want to plug, or not plug, but promote the career services Office 2 students. I personally was terrified of the career services department as a student. And that's just my own kind of like warped view of like Michigan Tech. Yes, most students are engineers, and the career fair is largely engineering based. So I always just kind of had the general assumption that they're there to support engineering students, and that's where all the greatest connections are. And I'm not saying this is correct. I'm just saying what I thought as a student during the time. I was just like, I don't know how career services is going to be able to help me, a communication, culture, and media major, pursue this niche field of international educators on campus. But I really missed out on that because the summer between graduating and kind of landing my first job in international education, I went through some horrible interviews. I just did not know how to interview well at all. And I was just like, I should have really just done those mock interviews with career services. I don't know why I was so scared of doing that as a student.
That's a good point to make is although Michigan Tech is predominantly an engineering school, in career services, we can help anybody in any
Yes.
field with practice, resume, networking, because regardless of if a company is hiring an engineer, the odds are that company is also looking for other types of disciplines that fit in with a lot of the areas across campus. So don't be afraid of us. We're not scary. And we are here to help at any point during your time and beyond because we do help alumni as well. So some people say that getting involved on campus could be seen more as like a resume booster or something to brag about. What's kind of your reaction to that mindset when in reality involvement on campus was part of what helped shape what you wanted to do?
I mean, not to say that it can't be a resume booster or stuff like that. It absolutely can be. But yeah, like I said, without campus involved, like when I changed my major, when I returned from the Dominican Republic, I had no idea what I wanted to do career wise. Kind of like when that happened, I just knew I couldn't do chemical engineering anymore. And I was doing well in it. I just didn't have any interest in it. I had I didn't have that level of excitement that students have for the career fair. I didn't have that. So I mean, if it wasn't for getting involved on campus in kind of the organizations that I was in, and also you kind of figure out the areas kind of like with those student organizations, like, oh, this is fun, this is a hobby, this is, helps me get involved. I am able to meet other students and kind of get involved in other ways through the student organization. But I don't know if this is a career for me. So, like I said, when I switched to communication, culture, and media, I was like, I didn't know if I wanted to kind of go through like the music industry route in terms of like just like organizing shows, kind of like the venue side of things, or um, yeah, study abroad wasn't even on my radar. Like study abroad professionally, like in that sort of role. So I added that minor in teaching English to speakers of other languages. So it also help keeps you from maybe making mistakes in the future, because when I first did make that change, I was just like, oh, I'll be an English teacher and I can live abroad and teach English. And by the time I finished that minor, while I did enjoy it and it was a great experience, I knew by the end of it, I'm like, I am not cut out to be a teacher. I am not cut out for this. So, it did help kind of like guide me back in towards the like, oh, what about you really do enjoy this global ambassadorship? This is like when you're doing these things, it's not, or I'm kind of like in my head talking to myself, like, oh, when you're out doing classroom presentations for this, or you're advising students on what study abroad program, like you actually like look forward to those things. They get added to your calendar and it doesn't seem like extra weight or like it's in the way. um so yeah, I kind of had those experiences where my involvement did help guide me and in the right direction, but also kept me from maybe overcommitting to fields or disciplines that weren't actually the best fit for me.
Hearing your story, I find it kind of interesting that we have a similar correlation to our time as students there. Because as a student, I worked a lot of hours in career services. And so I helped students with their uh, interview practice, resume stuff, things like that, the whole networking side, helped with organizing events in the career fair. And if you would have told me like 6 years after graduation that on and off, I would have been back with Michigan Tech Career Services, helping them and being part of the team again, I would have probably laughed. And so it's cool to hear that your experiences as a student, kind of working with the international programs office, has shaped kind of where you ended up. And my time working with career services as a student has also shaped where I ended up, where we're both back working for Michigan Tech and kind of enjoying what we're doing. So, as we get close to wrapping up our episode here, is there any last piece of advice or knowledge that you want to leave with students as they're kind of navigating their time in college and figuring out their next steps in career?
Yeah, it's okay to not be sure what you're going like. And if you do have the feelings that what you're doing isn't for you, don't just push it away. I'm not saying give up at the drop of a hat either and just say like immediately like change my major, but like have conversations with your academic advisor. Have conversations with your professors too. There's one anecdote that I have that I didn't get to, and it's kind of like a loose one anyway. But there was a specific conversation when I was talking to it. I just ran into my previous ENG 1101 professor somewhere, and I was just casually talking to him and like, oh, I really think I'm going to change my major. And he was just like, do it. Like, I was just like, oh, the engineering professors aren't offended that I'm like leaving engineering. No, like everybody does want what's the best for you. So I mean, don't ignore any sort of feelings if you feel like something isn't for you. Have conversations with the people in roles around you, whether that's your academic advisor, professors, other students who maybe have gone through similar experiences. But um, yeah, like I said, I mean, I was a 6 year undergrad. It took me 3 years to kind of figure out to start on the path that I'm on now. So don't be afraid that you pick your major when you come here. That's you're allowed freedom after that.
Yes. Yeah, you don't have to stick with that choice if you
Yeah.
realize it's not the right one for you. For our students who are interested in study abroad, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you or interact and connect on campus?
Our initial webpage, you can just Google MTU, study away, study abroad, and our link there, once you're in your browser, it'll take you to our main webpage where you can explore the different types of programs, links to schedule an appointment. You can email any initial questions to studyabroad@mtu.edu. And I also do want to mention that Michigan Tech has recently rejoined the National Student Exchange Consortium, which is actually a domestic consortium of 170 universities across the United States, Canada, Guam, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands. And as part of this, our students can spend one semester or an academic year at any of the other participating universities. So if you think that maybe you're not prepared to study abroad, but maybe you're like, oh, a semester at the University of Georgia would be really cool. And they have different classes in this field that aren't exactly like Michigan Tech. Look into Study Away. So through NSE. But yeah, on our webpage, book an appointment. There's tons of different types of programs. There's no one size fits all program for, oh, if you're a mechanical engineer, do this program. Like
Mhm.
there's lots of different types of programs out there. So meet with me and we kind of have an initial conversation about what your goals are. And I'll help you narrow down the hundreds of programs that are available to maybe two or three that best suit your goals. And then you can make the decision from there. And I'll help you with the application process.
And just so students know, where is your department located on campus?
I am located in the admin building, in the International Programs and Services office, which is room 200. So, second floor of the admin building, right
And
by Career
I
Services.
was going to say, so if you guys know where career services is, you basically walk right out of our door, right down the hall, and you can head into their area as well. So, Casey, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to meet with me and share your story and kind of how involvement on campus helped you determine the next steps for your career, and also about all these opportunities with study away and study abroad, so that hopefully our students will come in and chat with you and learn about these amazing experiences that can also shape their future career goals as they get out and experience the world. So, we're going to wrap up our episode for the day. If you guys enjoy these kinds of conversations, be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you get podcasts. And if you need assistance in your career at any point, head over to mtu.edu/career, or you can always reach out to us at career@mtu.edu. And we look forward to sharing more stories with you guys in future episodes.